traveling, and we've seen a lot of different candidates that are running for this office. There are Democrats running for this office, and I had said something a little while earlier, and I want to say it again to this group. This morning at a Farm Bureau forum, we saw Democrats running for office in the 9th District that literally would not say the Pledge of Allegiance in a public meeting, would not put their hand over their chest, over their heart, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. That's what kind of race is going on right now in Tennessee for District 9. But it belongs to the Republican Party. It belongs to the conservatives. And I'm so thankful that we have got a guy like Jeremy Thompson, 22-year military veteran. He is distinguished, well-known around Washington, D.C. He's here with us. He's going to be over on 100.7 Big Oldies here in just a few minutes after we finish here. We're going across there. Later today, we're headed to Lawrenceburg. We're going to be in Lawrenceburg at 1819 Restaurant at 6 p.m. So if you got any friends or family over there, tell them to come out, enjoy the evening with us over there as well. So these events are building. This movement is growing very fast. Thank you for being here. Can I get a big round of applause for Mr. Jeremy Thompson? Thank you.
All right, I want to say thank you first for everybody coming out. I know it's a burden sometimes to come out on political events, but I keep telling everybody that it's critically important this cycle to understand what we're up against and to motivate the voter base. We have reached a point in politics where we're turning out less than 30% of our voters across the board. I don't know what the numbers are here in Wayne County, but we're turning out an incredibly low voter base. So we have to do something to energize this party. I don't know if it's social media. I don't know if it's a younger crowd. I don't know if it's being loud. Somebody told me earlier, if I just go hit somebody in the face that was of some kind of importance on national TV, we would get some positive response from that. I said, we're not going to do that. I'm not interested in that. So let me say thank you to Small Town Suites for hosting us and allowing us to be here. I think that's important to make sure that, no problem. That's all right. Just to make sure that they know that we appreciate them. So thank you again for coming out. Why am I running for United States Congress and why do I think I'm qualified? That's the constant question that I get. So I'm going to open by saying that I'm 47 years old. I had 22 years in the United States Army. I did a couple of years intelligence contract work after that. And then me and my wife took an entrepreneurial step to get away from government, reduce the government footprint, and go open a restaurant over in Lincoln County, Tennessee that's based on the Revolutionary War, where we said if we could fill a seat 70 at a time, we would just teach history if we didn't do anything else. It's turned out that God's blessed us, and we have increased our numbers in that restaurant quite a bit over the last 6 or 7 months. The numbers actually have exceeded our expectations. We were told when we endeavored that we were going to enter the 90% failure expectation rate. That's what the banks and other friends and restaurant owners told us. You can't open a startup restaurant and not be in the 90% failure category. So I'm glad to tell you that we're in the 10% category of success right now. We opened in September, so we'll be closing the distance on that pretty soon. I believe it's important to get government out of our lives. I think we've got way too much government. It's outran itself. We continue to watch government get bigger and bigger, stronger and stronger, and more powerful, while those of us here left at home are less and less and less wealthy, a lot less powerful, and we don't have any control over our government anymore. We started this country with 7 articles and 27 amendments, and now we have over 220,000 rules, laws, regulations, or something that we have to go by. I did not see their certifications on the wall yet. I'm sure they're up there, but and I don't know how many there are, but I could guess. I bet there's somewhere between 5 and 10. In our restaurant, there's probably between 10 and 15. So I had no idea that I had to jump through hoops at the local, state, and federal level and pay thousands of dollars just to run a business, and continue to do that biannually and annually in some cases, just to stay compliant with what government thinks I ought to be doing. So I think there's a lot of power in getting back to our constitutional foundation and principles, and I think somebody's going to have to go to D.C. and start having hard conversations. Coattail politics isn't going to do it anymore. Aligning ourselves with people who are already in the arena or people who may make promises, however false they may be. We can't continue to do that and expect a change in what's going on at the ground level. So I want to affect that. I want to change that. And the reason I want to change that is because I think we have to start focusing on the next 100 to 200 years. Everybody keeps talking about what are we going to do in the next 100 to 200 days. And I find that almost comical because it really doesn't matter what happens in the next 100 or 200 days. We really have to start focusing on what the next 100 to 200 years is going to look like. And that's not going to happen until somebody's willing to go to D.C., take an office, one of 435, I might add, and start doing the work that everybody says needs to be done. We talk around issues all the time. We say a lot about the issues, but I don't know of anybody that's really taking a hard stance and going against the grain to get the job done. And that's the candidate that I would like to be if selected to go to the United States Congress. My family and I live in Fayetteville, Lincoln County, Tennessee, on a small 40-acre farm there. My mom bought that farm when I was a kid, and we've been blessed enough to buy that from her and start raising our family on that farm. Grady now is 19 years old. My daughter is 14. Her name is Eden. She'll be going to the high school over in Lincoln County this time, and she's super excited about that. We have entered the conversation of public school versus homeschool. And everybody wants to know, how do you feel about private school or homeschool? I think there's a lot of value in there. And the people I see doing homeschool are the people that are taking it seriously, introducing God, discipline, and structure in their children. So we send our kids to public schools, and there's a lot of ideological indoctrination there. So there's a lot of absence and failure to educate in the home. So then we send our kids to school, and they come home with all these questions about things that really apply to only less than 1% of the population. So I think we have to get away from that. We've seen this ideological infiltration of Marxism, socialism, communism across the board for several years now. And we have to start working to get away from that. I said earlier, somebody said, what's the greatest threat to our country? The greatest threat to our country, in my opinion, is K through 12 education, public education. And the reason I say that, there's a variety of reasons, but the reason I say that is because we're not producing patriots anymore, and not only are we not producing patriots who love our country enough to serve it and die for it, but we're not even producing patriots that are willing to go out and get a decent job and work for it. So if we continue down that path and nobody's going to engage that, nobody wants to have that uncomfortable conversation and get that on record, I don't see us surviving the next 10 or 20 years. And I think it's critically important that we get out in front of that. Leadership. I think the United States of America, I think the 9th District, Tennessee, is looking for someone to step up in a leadership position and not be the go-along-to-get-along candidate. So I think I have that leadership capability. I've been in the military for 22 years, and that doesn't make me unequivocally qualified aside from anybody else. But what I'll tell you is I learned to be process-oriented. And in the military, a couple of things that I found important. People want to be purpose-directed and motivated at all times to do a job. If you're going to raise your hand to any profession, business ownership, serving in public safety or service, you want to show up to work every day and have purpose, direction, and motivation. Once you get those things from a good leader, that leader should coach, guide, and mentor you through those processes. Because none of us knows a job until we take it on. I've had somebody say, well, I just don't know. I don't know if you have the experience, and I don't know if you're qualified. Okay, that's great, but I'd like to ask what made the other elected officials qualified for the job when they got it, if that's your position on that issue. The answer is I feel like I have a lot to bring to the table. I think I'm a dynamic candidate. I've been around the world a few times, been exposed to quite a few things. What you may not know, and I haven't said, is I've volunteered in my community for over 20 years now as a volunteer firefighter and EMT. And I've also worked in law enforcement, carrying a badge and a gun, doing the hard work over in Lincoln County. And I've worked under 5 sheriffs now as a commissioned deputy sheriff, and they won't let me turn it in. So I continue to carry a badge and a gun over in Lincoln County, and I'll work when I can to help the sheriff over there, who is a very good friend of mine. But that's a little bit about me. Where's Lindsay at? I missed her. She stepped out. Okay, she just came in. So my wife Lindsay and I met in 1998 in high school. We're almost 3 years apart, but she was the fairest to the fair over in Lincoln County, Tennessee, and I was working as a volunteer firefighter on a golf cart with an emblem on it with all the medical equipment. One of my buddies said, "Hey, you need to go talk to that girl." And I said, "She's probably got a boyfriend." He said, "Well, you don't know if you don't ask." So I went and asked, and she said no, and we got to talking, and it turned into this chase over about 3 months. I finally got a date, and I was going to take her to Nashville, Tennessee, and my pager went off for the fire department, and it wasn't too far from her house, but supposedly some guy had drowned on the Elk River. And I thought, man, if I can get there quick enough, I can maybe jump in the river and be able to rescue somebody. And that was my line of thought. So we got there, it was super dark. There was a truck on the side of the bridge there, and she ended up having to sit in the passenger seat of the county sheriff's car for the next 4 hours while I was down on the water in rescue boats looking for what we thought may be a recovery versus a rescue. Now, the latter part of that story is the guy framed the whole situation, went to Canada and drew his own life insurance money, and they didn't catch him until like 12 years later. So there's always something. There's always some nefarious stuff out there. So I said earlier that the world's full of evil, and we watch it every day. We watch it on our TVs. We watch more and more nasty things get introduced through what I think is a catastrophic failure of the FCC and other federal entities not holding lines of accountability. I'd like to see a lot more Andy Griffith on our TVs and a lot less what I would describe as smut and craziness. So that's who I am. That's why I'm running. Those are my baseline beliefs and philosophical thoughts. And I'm going to open up the floor, I think, for questions. I missed the story. I need to tell the story real quick. We talked about leadership. So I did 22 years on active duty. I made it to E7, started first class. I was an airborne special operations, all source intelligence analyst. But somewhere along that way, Barack Obama got elected to the presidency. And I watched almost an immediate and rapid declination in what I thought were the standards of, I always say it has to be legal, ethical, and moral if I'm going to follow orders, right? If I'm going to follow orders that are constitutionally grounded, it has to be legal, moral, and ethical. Well, things immediately started happening that had never happened in the military before. Introduction of all the pride stuff and the DEI stuff and all the conversations that were so distracting from our mission. I was infuriated over it, but I was also nauseated over it. I can't tell you how much focus there was on distracting us from our primary mission of staffing, equipping, and training the most lethal fighting force on the planet. And I was very disappointed in that. I remain disappointed in that. And somewhere along the way, we had this whole Joe Biden phenomenon happen. And I would love to tell you that I thought that was a legitimate election. I will live the rest of my life and tell you that I think that election was stolen and that he was appointed. And it was a catastrophic disaster, continued disaster for our military. But in my latter years of my career, we entered the COVID phase. And I don't know how everybody here feels about COVID. Everybody's got different opinions on it and what you should or shouldn't have done during that time. But I had a senior leader call my house one night and said, "Hey, this thing's developing quickly. We've got generals trying to make decisions. We've got governors. The president's trying to make decisions." I said, "Listen, we need to calm all the way down. There's a lot of illness and sickness out there that we don't get this excited over. So like, if we could just dial it back a notch or two, I'd very much appreciate that." And he said, "Well, what would you do?" I said, "If Norman Schwarzkopf held up the army on the Kuwaiti border back in 1991-92 because he thought there were chemical weapons on the other side of the Kuwaiti border, we would still be there with the engines running." I said, "That's not what happened. Leaders have to make decisions. They have to be principled, and they have to stand for what they believe in." So they said we weren't going to shut anything down. It was going to be life as normal for the next 48 hours, and then we got a notification that we couldn't leave home. We had to stay. This was active. I was on active duty, and they were like, "You can't leave home." I said, "Well, you can't leave home? What is this, a quarantine? Like, what are we doing here?" And we left that day. Me and Lindsay went to town, and it was a ghost town in Fayetteville, Tennessee. I'm sure all you guys experienced the same thing, but it was a ghost town. We didn't pass any traffic. There was no traffic on the town square. It was something that I would assume movies are being written about right now. But we're going to watch a movie very soon over the catastrophic failure of decision making that happened during that time. But this is what got me the most. The U.S. Constitution says provide for the health and welfare of, or general health and welfare of. So while I believe it's the government's responsibility to put money into research and medicine and things that will make us healthier and safer and thriving and all those things, I don't think it's ever the constitutional responsibility of the government to say that we're going to draw a medication that's understudied, that you don't know, and force it into your arm or your leg or your backside or wherever they want to put it. I couldn't process that. I said, you've lost your mind. There's no way that's happening to me or my family. That's something that I made a quick decision that I was willing to die over if necessary. So I said, we're not doing that. Well, obviously that became a very unpopular opinion for those who are serving in the military. I had colonels and generals, sergeants major call me and say, hey man, you need to toe the line. You're a soldier and you need to just go get vaccinated and set the example. I said, no. You need to grow up a little bit, grow a spine, be a little bit tougher than you're showing me you are right now, and say no to this. This is not happening to me or my family. And if I have anything to do with it, it won't happen to my soldiers. So they wanted me to collect a roster. This is serious. This really happened. They wanted me to collect a roster of names of soldiers who were going to blatantly refuse the vaccine. And I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and put my name at the top of it, and we'll see who else falls in line. Well, there was a lot of soldiers out there that didn't want the vaccine, adamantly against it, but still also wanted to protect their careers that were being threatened. Their livelihoods, their promotions, their pay grades, all that was being threatened. Now, the same thing was happening in corporate America. If you were a doctor, a nurse, worked in industry, emergency services, all your employers, all state officials, they were all saying, you can't stay in this job if you're not willing to get vaccinated. And I think that is a horrific injustice on the American people. So this is what I did. I went to the next staff meeting and I said, listen, I'm tired of this conversation. I'm not going to have it again. And I need everybody in here to know you can reprimand me, you can demote me, you can terminate me altogether. I'll lose it all. I do not care. But everybody here needs to understand that I am not getting vaccinated and I don't want another conversation over it. That's not happening. So that's probably the strongest example of principled leadership that I have. I'm sure Lindsay would say there's others. I believe when I see an injustice, and it's not legal, moral, and ethical, we have a responsibility to stand in the gap, regardless if it gets you shot in the forehead. And I mean that, I don't mean that phonetically, I mean that very literally. If it means you get shot in the forehead over a very principled issue, you have to be the person that's willing to stand in that gap. I'm that person. That's why I'm running for U.S. Congress, and that's why I'm asking for people's support in their vote. Thank you. All right, that was long enough, and I didn't put anybody to sleep yet, so we're going to go around the room, and I'll take the hard questions.
So we got a little microphone here just so we can get it worded, your question. Just if you just raise your hand, we'll just come over. We're not going to put it in your face, but just get it close to you where we can hear you.
Okay, I'll start.
All right, yep. Let me come to you. I'll come to you with a microphone.
We were all eager for that.
There you go.
Oh, this is cute. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions. Let me give you a little bit about my history. My name is Ann. I speak across the country in regards to sustainable living, teaching individuals how to homestead and to farm, and to create a profit off of their piece of land. Now, there's a lot of, we'll just say the right word, injustice in regards to what's happening in regards to food independence, food sovereignty, and food freedom as a whole. We just saw Massey just get booted out of office, and literally booted out of office, not for anything other than the simple fact that he rode a wave and he put his foot down, and a lot of people in my life really agree with it 100%. I appreciate you wanting to do the right thing for the people. Katie Katie tried to boost you up on me a little bit that said you bought your wife a milk cow and things like that. Welcome to being a milkmaid. There you go.
Ask and receive, right?
Right. It's a lot of work, just so you know. Okay. But what my question, I have a field of questions. And the first one's going to be is in the sense of representing Tennessee as a whole, because I am basically a transplant to Tennessee from Washington State. Call me a Washington State refugee, whatever you want to say it. But the point of it is that Tennessee as a whole, when it comes to Farm Bureau and when it comes to legislation and when it comes to the Milkman's Association, the Dairy Association and things like that, it is a corrupt system all the way across the board. How are you going to keep yourself out of that corruptness and not be bought into it to just keep your position for what you want? That's the first question. The second question is that how do you feel about the Prime Act? How are you going to enforce it? The Prime Act, but okay, you know what the Prime Act is, right? The Prime Act under Massey. Yeah. How are you going to ensure that that is going to stay and be able to be held? Because as a small producer, that benefits me across the board because we raise our own beef, our own lamb, our own hog, and our own pasture-raised chicken, and we resell it out to the public. So how are we going to stay protected in ensuring that the USDA is not involved in what we need to do, reduce our costs so we can offer it to our community at a better price, especially in Wayne County, versus having to be mandated to follow the USDA guidelines in that. And then on top of that, the last question, this is the very last question for you. On top of that, it's going to be in regards to cottage laws and food sovereignty as a whole. Tennessee does not work with small producers like myself at all. Mm-hmm. As a small milk producer, and this is where if you choose to step into this, as a small dairy producer, I cannot even use the milk that comes from my farm as part of a cottage law for my kitchen in any way, shape, or form. I'm expected to, number one, feed my cows, produce a herd share, but then turn around and go to the grocery store, buy my butter, my cream, my sour cream, everything like that, which causes me to pay twice, which causes me to charge more for goods that come off my farm. When at the end of the day, by the time you heat up those particular items, it's already become pasteurized. So the system is wrong. The system is not corrupt. It's actually corrupt in a sense that it's not feeding the pockets of the Dairy Association. It's going against the Farm Bureau, because Farm Bureau, in a sense, says, okay, if you're not going to follow this, then we're going to strip you from this. It's all a game of money that's going to change hands. How are you going to stay out of that dirty game? And how are you going to still represent your state by the time you sit outside of your state? Because you just said you're from Murfreesboro, right?
Lincoln County.
Lincoln County. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So those are my questions. Those are tough questions. And as a small producer,
they're tough. But
and at the end of the day, too, is that you have so many transplants in the state of Tennessee that are demanding that someone holds true to what we moved here for, was the freedoms to be able to do the things that are not, unconstitutional in any sense of the way. It's just bothering the big guy that owns the money that will pay you to turn around and vote in a different way. Mm-hmm. I'm a very direct person. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I think they're all good questions, and I align very heavily in your direction. But I think what we have to do is set realistic expectations. These are very powerful and very heavily backed institutions. So for me to come to a place like this and say I'm running for U.S. Congress and I'm going to go change the world as you know it, as it relates to the three things that you identified as an injustice, I believe they're an injustice too. I think what we have to do is probably frame legislation that is all-inclusive of food sovereignty and get government out of it. I think a lot of it's going to be systematic chiseling and deregulating. And you're going to have to get the executive on board to help support some of that. I went and talked to Governor Lee 3 or 4 weeks ago on the health issue where they were trying to determine who was going to be successful and who wasn't in the pharmacy arena, the PBM legislation. You guys might have followed some of that. And I said, why is government sticking their nose in free market enterprise? Like, why are we doing that? I mean, Tennessee has a history now over the last 3 years, probably longer, but over the last 3 years with an all-conservative legislature, we've passed between 500 and 600 new laws a year for the last 3 years. And it's just not sustainable. It's not conservative. It's not Republican. I don't understand it. Very disappointed in that. What I can tell you is I had none of this. Food sovereignty was not even on our radar until a couple of things happened. COVID happened. We got the dairy cow. We started milking. people started calling us, and then she's producing 3 gallons a day. I don't want to waste it. So people started calling like, hey, I want to buy your raw milk. Oh, cool, that shouldn't be a problem. What's it worth? They're like, oh, it's worth $10 or $12 a gallon, or really whatever anybody will pay for it. Oh, wow, that was enlightening. So we sold, I think, probably a couple of gallons before we realized there were laws against doing that. Somebody called and said, hey, you can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? So started looking that up. We got into the herd share discussion. And what that is it's a cutout, it's carve out, right? It's a way around the law. So that's the conversation I had with Governor Lee. You're passing all these laws, and you feel really good about it, and you get applause at the conference rooms for all this legislation. But what does it do to make people more free or more safe? The first answer is it doesn't make anybody more free. There is a conversation about how we keep people safe, because everybody is not as hygienic, sterile, and process-oriented as maybe you and I may be, or others. So I do believe that there's a place there to hold accountability on what might make people sick. Okay, so I think there's room for that conversation. But I think that the overall answer is a food sovereignty proposal, legislative proposal that brings all those issues to the same discussion, I guess is what I'm saying. And see how far we can advance that, see what kind of popularity it gains. Because I'll tell you, and you know already, it's not just Farm Bureau, it's the USDA, it's the whole federal government machine. We're going to have to be smart. Now, I could come in here and blow smoke at the table and say, I have all these great ideas and they're all going to work on year one. It's just not realistic. So we have to start applying real analytical thought to how we reverse what they've done. And the first thing I can think of is rapid, aggressive deregulation.
So holding true to the Prime Act, that's a big deal, right? It will cost me, this is how much it costs me, thank you. This is how much it's gonna cost me to run beef. I just brought in 2 beefs. I sell them not under the table, but away from the USDA point. So make me sell either a half or a whole cow as a whole. If I have to run it through the USDA, it's $100 per to have that one person stand there, put his hands in his pocket, lean over and go, check, doesn't do anything else, doesn't check the organs, doesn't check anything like that, no mad cow disease, nothing. And then to turn around and I have to pay an extra 75 cents per pound on top of that. Not you, the government is pushing small producers out. By Massey turning around and enforcing the Prime Act, how are we going to know now that Massey's been forced out of where he should be sitting, Massey for president next coming up years, just so everybody vote, at the end of the day, to turn around and say that it's going to be held true and that the next person isn't going to try to push it out. At the end of the day, it's small producers that are suffering all the way across the board, whether or not you're doing a dairy business, whether or not you're running beef, right? Even in the state of Tennessee, you can run up to 20,000 backyard chickens pasture raised on your property with no USDA guidelines. However, we cannot part those chickens and sell them individual, but you can tell me I can sell a whole chicken all day long, right? But you want me to pay for a USDA processor just to part it when I can part a bird faster than a USDA processor can.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. And we raise cattle every year on a low scale. Number one, we've never received a subsidy, but we wouldn't qualify for one anyway because we're not a large enough operation. So to say that the scales are heavily tilted in large corporations' favor and large corporations who are already profiting, who already have sustainability in agriculture, the government's just making them that much more powerful by alienating and deleting people like us out. So how do we get relevant in that conversation? So we're already in a food shortage or a food crisis, as we've identified over the last 6 or 8 months. So I think it's going to be a matter of us becoming more and more relevant at the ground level, staying in the fight and not getting fed up and going and doing a factory job or something like that. But certainly I think the first thing we have to do is start chiseling away and deregulate at the lowest level. That's again, if I went in there swinging a baseball bat at everything, it's just going to get shut down. I mean,
I just hope that you walk in there just remembering that small producers are the ones that are actually getting you to where you need to be.
Oh, I agree.
You know what I mean? It's not going to be your rancher that's running 20,000 head of cattle that sends it, that could be grass fed, but then sends it out to be in a sludge fed after that, you know, at the end of the day. So it's one of those, it's basically, to me, I guess, to vote you in place would be, are you going to hold true to those small producers? Because Tennessee has accumulated quite a bit of small producers who are going back to traditional small family farms to feed their community. So at the end of the day, the beef shortage is just cattle ranchers holding on to their cows because of the simple fact of what happened. And, we're going to see the change adjust back again in the next 2-3 years, possibly. Yep. The Dairy Association in Tennessee says, go ahead and go raw, but it's your small dairy farmers that are like, no, because then what are we going to do? So I think that hopefully if you get to sit through God's grace in a chair up in Congress, up on that hill, that you really think about the small producers that are going to put you there at the end of the day. Because as a traditional small family farm that sells everything, including a CSA, off of my farm, it's one of those things that, that's who I'm looking for. I need someone that's going to represent me as a whole and the rest of my community that steps up to do something like that.
I think the
and
only
tell them to stop telling us to register our bees. It's none of their business.
I think the only thing that I could stay true to is to say that I would carry and sponsor legislation that deregulates and gets government out of our lives, and to all the way to a point where smart people don't find or think that they have to have loopholes. And that was part of my conversation with the governor the other day. You can write all the laws you want to. I don't care. You just go law writing crazy. People are smart, and they will find a way around it. They will find a legal and lawful way around it if you just keep on writing laws. And I truly believe that. At the end of the day, I think you got to do what's right by you. We did what we thought was right by us, and we never made anybody sick. As a matter of fact, I think I told the story in front of Farm Bureau the other day that I thought raw milk was very healthy, and that I felt better from drinking raw milk. And not just that, we had people reach out to us that had lactose intolerance issues for homogenized milk, and they drink our milk, have no issues whatsoever. So there's an argument to be had there. It just has to be had. You've got to find people that want to carry that argument forward and have it. There's got to be more.
Oh, I got it.
Yes, ma'am.
I really don't need one.
That's all good.
Okay, so I'm a refugee from California, and one of the big issues was Devin Nunes, went in from my hometown, and he's like, I'm going to do the right thing no matter what. I promise I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to vote the way you guys want me to vote, and we all know the outcome to have, right? So, as a Christian, I can't come and threaten to beat you anymore like I threatened him before I became a Christian. But my question is he said, his answer to me was, you don't know what it's like. You don't know the backroom deals you have to make to do things. And I said, but you promised you weren't going to do it. He was naive to the politics. That would be my only concern with you, is you were naive to the politics, but you did spend all those years in the military. You know how it works. What's your guarantee that you're not going to go up there and pull a Devin Nunes?
There is no guarantee for anybody. There's 435 seats in Congress, and they all get dragged into those back rooms and conversations. It's tit for tat. I'll do this for you if you'll do that for me. I'm not naive to the process. So I didn't say this, but I'm the executive director for the Special Operations Association of America. So for the last 12 years of my life, I've been on Capitol Hill in the House and the Senate advocating for special operations, veterans affairs, and national security issues around the country. So I see it all the time. I see the cocktail parties that get nothing done for anyone. I see people chasing coattail politics. And it's really weird for me to watch, but a lot of these guys and girls are like, what's it going to take to get in a Senate seat? What's it going to take to get in a governor's seat? What's it going to take to get a presidential appointment to an office somewhere? Like, if that's your ambition, then you should be at home doing something more productive with your life, I think. Like, this is a service thing for me. If I can go and be of service to the people, that's the goal here. It's not to go become part of the system or get gobbled up by the system. I've seen that happen to so many people. And the only thing really I could ask is that the people who elect me hold me accountable. And if they see me doing something that is alternative to what I've said I'll do, that they'll make sure that I know it and not continue to elect me. But what I would tell you is good people are not stepping forward because of the ugliness and the evilness of politics right now. And I would be very dishonest and disingenuous, I think, to tell you guys that I had this master plan to go fix it all as one of 435 or 535 if you count the Senate. So I just think good people have to be in place to do good things. They're probably going to have to happen on a small scale and hopefully get some kind of snowball effect. But it's got to be a God thing too. There's 435 members there. I don't know what the ratio is. I haven't done the study, but there's a lot of in that 435 that God is either off their radar entirely and by a long shot is not their first priority. So I think it's got to start there. God will put us where He wants us. He'll open the doors that He wants us to walk through, and it's our job to do the work. And I think that's what we're doing. Thank you.
When we were in Savannah, I asked you a question about the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, about the forces combining between the military, our military, and intelligence with Israel. And you said we're already kind of doing that.
Been doing it for years. Yeah.
And so my question for you is, just because we've always done it, do we need to keep doing it?
So I think you have to do it. It's not a matter of should we keep doing it. I like that conversation too. I'm not a believer in that, but just because we've always done it, we should keep doing it. You keep doing the same thing, you get different results, that whole conversation. I've made that euphemism many, many times. But what I'll tell you is, yes, we absolutely have to maintain allies and partners in the Middle East. And Israel just happens to be our strongest one. So that relationship, in my opinion, for a matter of global and national security, has to be maintained in some way. I think I said that relationship has to be responsible, and we have to be very careful about where we let it develop. But I think national level leaders right now are looking beyond the next 20, 25 years to see what technology development and AI implementation and all those things are going to do. I wouldn't dismiss the fact that in 30 to 50 years from now that we see some kind of Star Wars type implementation of national defense around the world. It's going to get really ugly, really, really fast, unless people step up and start cutting it off at the head. But I think you're going to see drone warfare. I think you're going to see geospatial warfare. You're going to see things that 20 years ago we wouldn't have even imagined could be on a battlefield. Laser technology that can take out entire battalions in just seconds. Like, how are we going to respond to that? How are we going to respond to hypersonic nuclear warfare? All those conversations are heavy, heavy conversations in U.S. national defense right now, but it's a global effort. It's something that everybody has to talk about and determine, is that what we're going to do? Is that how we're going to advance and develop ourselves to be global superpowers? Because that's the pursuit. You know, everybody wants to be the next global superpower. We've been it for a very long time. This is more philosophical and historical, but I say this all the time. Superpowers are what am I looking for? So nations that have the highest status on the planet have only survived for about 100 years at a time before they implode or collapse. And I go back to Rome, the Roman Empire. They fought for their land. They fought for their policies. They were the first democracy on the planet. People loved it. People thought there's freedom there. You get to do what you want to do. With you get to establish tax brackets that are supported by the people. They were giving up their gold and their riches to support Rome, because Rome was this great thing. Well, then they allowed foreign immigration because they got greedy and they got reckless and irresponsible, and they were having people come to Rome in droves for the status and the valor of Rome. but they didn't have the skin in the game. They had not fought for Rome. Their ancestors had not fought for Rome. They didn't have any commitment to sustain Rome. So they imploded. They went against the emperor. They had him executed, and everything fell apart from there. Well, then I look at the United States of America and Europe, or Great Britain. Great Britain didn't last forever, and they were the greatest nation, or the greatest army on earth. We established ourselves 250 years ago. And we have reset this country at about every 100 years. So 1776, we took up arms. We established the United States of America. If you fast forward to 1861, we had the first Civil War in the United States of America, and it about killed us. More lives were lost during that conflict than any other war on record. And then we go from 1861 to 1965, you have the Civil Rights Movement, where Marxism, communism, and all the ideological infiltration took place. Well, you go from 1965 to 2026, we're getting real close to another national reset. And I know you all feel it. I feel it every day. We're very polarized. There are people talking about militias. There's people talking about how many bullets do you have. There's people talking about how long can you sustain your family and friends. Those conversations are being had. And I don't know what that looks like, but I can tell you if there's anything I can do to prevent it, that's what I'm here for. And if there's nothing I can do to prevent it, I'm also here for whatever fight follows. Long answer. Sorry about that. We got to close it up? All right. We got to close it up. We got somewhere else to be, apparently. So thank you guys for coming out. The call to action at each one of these, doesn't matter how small or how large a gathering is. 2 people turns into 20, 20 turn into 200, and 200 turn into 2,000. So we're just asking people to mobilize their networks. Call family, friends, professionals. Tell them our story. Tell them our vision if you're interested in supporting. And that's all we can ask of you outside a vote on August the 6th. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we don't have.
What's up? Yeah.
We don't have your.
I think it's a mess.
Now, you need to just